need to stop talking about philanthropy and giving back as a way to keep our employees or have a better PR strategy. I think we need to look internal and determine why are we doing what we do. I will tell you that I think wealth is the ultimate revealer of what's actually inside. If you're a giver and all of a sudden you come into wealth, you give. If you're greedy, you just get more greedy. If you're evil, it creates more evil. I think wealth is just a magnifying glass of what's actually inside.
Welcome back to the show, and I want to welcome Eddie Wilson, the king of exits, to the root of all success. I'm glad you're here, Eddie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, so you've been called the king of exits by some pretty powerful people and powerful publications. You've owned over 125 companies, exited over 100 of those. But let's be real. Exiting is not always as glamorous as we hear. It's not, because I consider myself an exit coach. So I wrote a book called Exit Without Exiting, and that's kind of what I do with my mastermind. And I know from firsthand on the line, front lines experience, it's not always very glamorous. So is there a moment in your career where an exit didn't go as planned? And tell me how you handled that.
Yeah, for sure. My very first one, as a matter of fact, because when you don't have somebody that helps you along that pathway, you really don't know what you're doing. And people are very savvy and sophisticated playing this game. My first exit, I left about 30 million on the table because it was an unintentional exit. I was trying to source capital, and I had taken a contract off of some very powerful people, one of the largest ad agencies in the world. They kind of hid behind the curtain, said, here's your capital. I was sitting down at the closing table. I'd overextended myself, and they said, hey, by the way, this day is not going to go like you think it's going to go. I thought, well, you're just going to send me out. And, but they said, we actually are going to buy your company, and here's how we're going to do it. And they basically forced me into a situation where I had to exit. I had already taken on a contract for $30 million with the expectation I was going to have the capital. And they knew that if I did not take their money, if I didn't have the money, they knew the whole situation, because I had actually taken Subway sandwich shops off of them and had to have the 30 million. And so pretty wild story, but they basically, they showed me the ropes very quickly. And I was not intending to exit. I was going to exit 4 or 5 years down the road, and ended up exiting. So I learned a very quick lesson. The reason I'm a king of exits today is because after I came back that day, the next day as we were signing papers, I promised myself I was never going to sit in that seat the same way again.
Yeah. Well, most entrepreneurs dream of building a business that lasts, yet you kind of seem to have mastered the art of knowing exactly when to go. Maybe that first one notwithstanding, but what's the mindset shift that entrepreneurs need to make when considering an exit?
Yeah, I always say there's 5 phases of business. There's what we call the startup phase. It moves into perseverance. That's pre-profit, then into viability. Then once you're stabilized, then you can scale. That's phase 4. And then lastly, succession. Succession to me is when I have reached the peak of what I am capable of in that business. Now, succession can be exiting. Succession could be naming a successor. But if I lose interest or I feel like I've hit the peak of the market, I'm going to shop for the opportunity to sell that business. The nice thing is once you sell 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, it's like there's this never-ending capital that's out there that's always pressing me for the next business. So I get calls from big private equity firms almost every month saying, what do you have to sell? What's out there? Because I sell solid businesses that leave some meat on the bone but have solid operating systems.
Now, speaking of operating systems, you created the Empire operating system to systematize and scale businesses effectively. So what's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when they're trying to scale, and how does your system solve that?
Yeah, the big differentiator between my system and all of the systems, and I think all of their systems actually are good. Like I would never put another one down. As a matter of fact, I ran 30 of my companies on EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, right? The problem with most systems, though, is that it doesn't tell you when to do a given or set action, right? So like most systems say, okay, you set your quarterly activities, you set your annual activities, but it never gives you a scientific way of determining what that activity should be. So I would say that I've taken business and turned it into a science through a systematic way of answering questions to tell you what's the next right action in your business. Think of it this way. Is it ever wrong to spend marketing dollars to gain customers? Well, not really. I mean, spending marketing dollars is typically pretty good, unless you have a fulfillment problem, right? Like then you should be essentially spending your dollars on fulfilling what you've already promised customers. So it's not that they're doing wrong activities, it's they're doing right activities at the wrong time. The system creates a science that allows you to know when to actually take the right step and what the next step is.
So how do you know when the timing is right?
Yeah. For exiting or for just...
No, for the next spot in the system.
Yeah. So it is a systematic way. Those 5 phases are the foundation. And every single quarter, you've got to be determining where you are on the map, where you want to go, and what those steps are. And so there's a couple of different ways to actually measure that. One is called a 5-pillar assessment that we do. And you have 5 pillars in your business. This would be similar to like a master's program. They say that there's really 5 pillars in every business. Sales and marketing would be a pillar, personnel, finance, leadership, and operations. If you do this assessment, I can tell you where your biggest breakdown is going to be. And then every single quarter, essentially, we're taking that next big action that creates a foundationally proper business so that you can start systemizing and getting out of the big issues. Essentially, what you're doing is you're removing the boulders out of the river, and you're getting to a place where every single month you're removing a boulder. Those are your big issues. And you get to a place where you're very, very productive and efficient. And it essentially maximizes your ability to produce in a company.
So many entrepreneurs, as you know, build their businesses around themselves and they make themselves irreplaceable. So how do you teach them to step back without the company collapsing?
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Most entrepreneurs build themselves a prison they can't get out of. And trying to avoid the job that they don't want to be in, they create a new prison. It's a different box. And the way that I teach them to do that is, there's multiple steps. But I would say the biggest step is most entrepreneurs in building the business around them just replicate themselves. They don't build complementary systems or people in their organization because they value themselves. They've got themselves to a certain plateau, and they don't necessarily value all the other things that are necessary to make them successful. So in order for us as entrepreneurs to rise beyond just that business being me, I've got to put the right people in place. Then I have to put the right systems in place that govern my people. So you have to know what people to put in place, what you're lacking, where you need to supplement, and then you have to have a system that helps you govern those people to get the most out of them.
You said you talked about the 5-pillar assessment, but speaking of pillars, you talk about the 3 pillars of time, wealth, and purpose. Mm-hmm. And you've said that success is built on time, wealth, and purpose. So which of those 3 did you struggle with the most in your journey?
Yeah, I grew up in a family where time was preached a lot. I had a dad that constantly talked about time and the value of time, and wouldn't even allow me to talk or speak about things in the context of money. He would say, how much? I would say, I want to buy a car. And he'd say, well, how much is that car? And I would say, $1,800. He would say, no, it's not $1,800. How much do you get paid an hour? $5 an hour. Okay, that's this many hours of your life that you're trading for that car. So I did pretty well on time. Where I struggled was, and I think controlling your time actually leads to wealth. An understanding of wealth ultimately gets you to a place where there's a void. Where I struggled was with that massive void. I sold a couple of 76 companies in 1 year for a little over $1 billion and was empty inside. I had no fulfillment, no happiness, no joy. As a matter of fact, it was the exact opposite. I had massive depression. I struggle with purpose. And so for me, it was like I had mastered the art of managing my time and getting the most out of my day. I had maximized my time to the point where it gave me a present back, which was wealth. And then I was empty. And purpose was that last piece that I was missing.
Well, a lot of entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship, business ownership, because they want to become wealthy. They want money. It's a money attraction. And let's be honest, a lot of entrepreneurs do make a lot of money. They figured out the wealth phase, but they still feel trapped in their own business. So how do you teach them to shift towards time and purpose?
Yeah. I always say that, my dad said it best, I think. He used to say, if you chase money, it'll always elude you. But if you chase your time, if you chase maximizing your time, it rewards you with wealth, or it rewards you with something. And so I think that entrepreneurs need to focus on their time and time management. What are they getting out of their day? It's like so many of them do activities that have no value. There is no monetary value. And if you chase it, and I chase it at a little bit of a ridiculous level, I actually use an app called Toggle. And for the last 13 years, I toggle every activity and the hours I put into it every single day. I give those to my CFO at the end of the year, and he tells me your active hours versus active income is this much per hour, right? And so, I think last year I did $864 an hour, not including my passive investments. This is my active, what I'm trading my time for. And every year I've just been increasing that. What's interesting is I don't care about the money. What I do is I'm constantly focused on the time, and then I understand the value of my time, so then it just rewards me with more money. Problem is you get to the end of that rope and you maximize every hour of every day, you're crushing it financially, and it's still emptiness, right? If it doesn't move towards something of value. One thing is like you have to exchange your time for value. When you exchange your time for value, you get rewarded with wealth. But if that value doesn't coincide with purpose, it's still emptiness.
That's good. Well, I also know that you love motorcycles. We talked about that pre-show. I ride too. We even talked about maybe getting on a ride together at some point. But what is it about riding that connects so well with the entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I love to ride. I grew up in a family where we all rode. I ride. My 18-year-old son has a bike. We go out and ride once a week. It's a part of my life. I don't slow down ever. And there's something about being on a motorcycle that is freedom. There's really nothing else you can do. I can't sit there and text. I can't write emails. I, don't really talk on the phone, all that stuff kind of has to go away. And so you're just out there riding. There's nothing else to do but to ponder your thoughts. I spend a lot of time in prayer and meditation, and it's time where there's nothing else between me and God, me and my thoughts, me and my son. It's the easiest way for me to isolate into things that matter.
If you could take a 1-week motorcycle trip with 3 entrepreneurs, dead or alive, who would they be and where would you go?
That is a really, really great question. One would still be my dad. My dad's my favorite entrepreneur on the planet. We have a very, very different philosophy on business. He loves he loves the businesses that allow his lifestyle to show through. I want to scale and grow everything. But my dad's still my favorite entrepreneur, so I'd always pick my dad. The other person I would love to go back to Benjamin Franklin. He's one of my favorite historical figures. He's kind of crazy. He's kind of weird. He's eccentric, but he built the first hospital. He built the first, he was the first postmaster. When Wells Fargo was finding out how to make money on moving stuff across the country, he's like, let's actually create a system and a process for this. And so Benjamin Franklin. And then, I probably got to throw an Elon Musk in there, because it's like that dude's as eccentric as they come, but his dreams and aspirations and what he's doing, whether you like him or not politically, it's like he's literally trying to figure out how to change transportation not just on the planet, but like in the global ecosystem, right? Like, how do we get to Mars? And it's like, I don't understand that level of thinking. And so I'd love to just pick his brain for a while.
And where would you guys go?
So I've always wanted to, I don't know if you couldn't do this in a week, but there's that ride that starts in southern Argentina that goes all the way up through Central America and, ends up all the way back in Seattle. Like I would love to ride all through South America and, the Andes Mountains and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I think that trail that you're talking about is like 13,000 miles. It's a crazy long trail. Yeah. It's interesting as a rider myself. I've never really thought about doing that because the danger of going to other countries is the things that keeps me from doing it. It's not about the ride. It's like, I don't know if I'll get robbed or die somewhere, but who knows? Maybe I just need to get over that and go do it anyway.
One of my bucket list things, I ride in almost every country. I've ridden in almost 100 countries now. And so I beg, borrow, steal, find a motorcycle for somebody, and I'll find a ride somewhere. I've ridden in a ton of countries, and it's always exciting. I've wrecked a couple of times and did some crazy things, but it's I don't know, there's just something about riding a motorcycle in a foreign place that's a lot of fun.
So let's talk about money and banking because I know it has a lot to do with exiting.
Mhm.
So one thing people don't talk about enough is in exits when they're talking about exit is banking and cash flow. And you could sell a business, but if the money isn't handled properly, it's easy to lose it all. So what are some financial pitfalls that entrepreneurs should avoid before, during, and after an exit?
You know, there should be a preparation period in the exit. Oftentimes, exits catch people off guard. They don't think about exiting, they're never prepared for exiting. And so they leave a lot of money on the table because they're not in preparation financially to exit. Oftentimes now when I start thinking about exiting, I'll prepare all my finances specifically. It's like you want to limit how much debt you're taking on. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of frivolous expenses in there. You want to take a solid salary. You want to do all these things. But for most companies, they don't think about being bankable. And so, if you're not establishing a bankable company, something that a bank would say, hey, we'll give you a line of credit, we'll actually help you grow, what you're going to do is you're going to pass on a banking problem to the person who you're selling to. Now, some private equity firms, they don't care. They've got enough capital that they'll weather that storm. But a smaller private equity firm like me, it's a huge issue, and I'll discount the value. If you think about if a bank won't give you a line of credit, for me as a person bringing this, you probably have a fundamental financial problem, which states that you don't have credit, you don't have good systems that determine both capital income and outgo. You don't have a good projection system. So we run on what's called a cash flow pro forma on a weekly basis. I can tell you everything I expected, what came in, and what it does to my profitability on an annual basis. Like when I pass that on, they know what the projection is. They know, and that's where banks will give me just about as much money as I want on these companies. So when I pass them on, it's this very financially viable, stable asset that they can leverage the moment that they get it.
Well, speaking of smart money moves, I want to take a second just to shout out Relay, the sponsor of this episode. Their banking system is built for entrepreneurs that offering the kind of control and automation that growing businesses actually need. And I'm a huge fan. And I'd love to get your take. How important is it for entrepreneurs to have a banking system that actually works? But before you answer that, I want to tell people if you want to try out Relay, it's really an amazing banking system. You can go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay and try them out for free. It's great. They've got great automation set up. And if you're a fan of the profit first system Mike Michalowicz writes about, Relay is built to do that automatically for you. So Eddie, how important is it for entrepreneurs to have a banking system that actually works for them?
It's important. When you get to a certain level, you have a CFO, and what that CFO is doing is he's breaking your finances down into really four, let's say, quadrants. The banking process that you're talking about is what a good CFO is going to solve. So before you ever get there, if you can find, I always say that you should be fractionalizing all the things you need, right, for the future before you grow, before you actually get there. Well, solving those banking systems, is essentially taking that step in a fractional way before you actually need it. It's important though, because most people do not know. I love the profit first model. It's tough to run at 100 million or 200 million, and it's tough to run at size or at scale. But the model and the principles are still the same. And it solves the problem that most entrepreneurs cannot answer. And that is, how much money do you make? They just can't answer that question.
Yeah. Oh, I came across Profit First as a book, I don't know how many years ago, and I was blown away because I thought, man, this is something I've been missing. We implemented that, and it really changed the financial outlook for the business. And we would have probably not survived a couple of missteps had we not had the Profit First system set up. And then when I found Relay, it was like, holy crap, this does it for me. Right. And it's automated. It's such a great, and I'm so happy to have them as a sponsor of this episode. Now, speaking more about money, Eddie, you've built incredible wealth. I didn't look up your net worth, and I don't know if it's something you talk about, but it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But now you're focused on your foundation, which is impact others.
Yeah.
So what was the turning point where you realized philanthropy needed to be a part of your legacy?
Yeah, most people do it as it's like a step on the journey, or it's a tax strategy. for me, I lacked fulfillment and I needed to do something that mattered. And so I'd had all these exits. It was still empty. I was kind of just out searching for opportunities. I was on a diving trip, found a buddy that had built an orphanage in Honduras, went and visited. He didn't have the resources or the funds to do all that he had needed, and had still a bunch of starving children that he just couldn't feed. And we just decided we'd help. And being down there gave me such a level of joy, and I really found a lot of fulfillment in that, and decided just to keep doing it. And the crazy thing is, Jake, you can sell a business or a group business for $1 billion and still find more need in the world than your billion will cover, right? And I obviously I didn't take home all that billion. I had a bunch of partners in that deal. But it's like I still ran out of resources, and to the point where, my legacy and my kids and grandkids are all taken care of. It's like, but I still have a passion to help these people, and I'm getting a lot of fulfillment. So this private equity firm that we built, it's about 2.5 years old now, is specifically built to just give the money away. And it's built to be a machine to just fund the Impact Others vision, which is about helping children around the world through education, feeding, orphanages. We do a lot of clean water projects, wells and things like that. And then we build sustainable businesses.
A lot of entrepreneurs say that, I'll give back after they make enough money, but many of them never do. So what's your advice to business owners about when to start incorporating philanthropy into their success?
I think that we need to stop talking about philanthropy and giving back as a way to keep our employees or have a better PR strategy. I think we need to look internal and determine why are we doing what we do. I will tell you that I think wealth is the ultimate revealer of what's actually inside. I think that if you're a giver and all of a sudden you come into wealth, you give. If you're greedy, you just get more greedy. If you're evil, it's like it creates more evil. It's like, I think wealth is just a magnifying glass of what's actually inside. And so I often say, the one thing when people say, what would you go back and do differently? I always say, I wouldn't change anything except for the fact I would have started giving and found fulfillment long before I ever had money. Like I would have just taken that step along the journey, and it would have been a growth process for me. That's the only thing I would change. I mean, the ups, the downs, the failures, the issues, I wouldn't change that. That's all growth. But I would start giving earlier. And I've noticed that people that have a mindset of giving and philanthropy, it really exposes them to other opportunities that they never would have had they not had that mindset.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus said it's better to give than it is to receive, and people don't understand what that actually means. And you're doing it at a much higher level. So I can sense it that this is not just something you talk about. It's actually in the heart. That's really good. And I want to talk about Aspire just for a second. I don't want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell the audience about it, because I went to the Aspire tour here in Nashville back in November of 2024. And honestly, the only reason I went and even knew about it was because Tim Story, who's a friend of mine, he used to be my life coach. He was one of the speakers on stage, and he was having a birthday party here in Nashville. And he said, hey, my birthday gift to you is I'm going to give you tickets to Aspire. So I was like, oh, what is this thing? And I looked and I saw Marcus Lemonis was going to be there. And then Mr. Wonderful is going to be there, and other amazing speakers. And I went, and I have to say, I was blown away by the event. I thought it was really, really, really well done. And I know that that you do those all over the country. And I couldn't go to the wealth you did a follow-up, a wealth tour, I guess. I couldn't do the one in Nashville. I was already booked. So I ended up going to the one in Atlanta, and it also really, really well done. But tell everybody about why you do that. You and Andrew Cordell do this together. What is it, and why should people be impressed or interested in it?
Yeah. So for me, there's two reasons. The one is the business reason, right? And I believe that private equity is done best when you're serving a community. So if you look at all of my exits, and if you look at the kind of context for why I do what I do, I build community. I do a ton of data science on it, and I determine what products or services they need along their journey, right? So that's why I'm rolling up tax firms across America right now, right? Like I'm seeing that this small business group that we've amassed needs tax prep, needs CPAs, right? Like needs these financial services. So I go serve them with that. I have a lot of trust built up with them. And so now I'm building a stickier, client. And that's how I've exited. I've never, the Aspire is the goose, the eggs, right, are all of these things that I get to build with this community that I get to serve. So I've done that multiple ways. I built Think Really, that was a community. I built the American Association of Private Lenders, that was a community. We had FitCon in the fitness space, that was a community. And it's like, but Aspire is just a small business community for aspiring entrepreneurs who just need the next step along the journey. So our tour that happens every single month across the nation, every single month is 3,000 to 5,000 people. We put real entrepreneurs on stage, real business owners that are going to have real conversations. And if they don't have real conversations, we won't ask them back. There's a lot of great talent we've had that we've never had come back because they're not authentic. And so for the entrepreneur, what I want them to see is like, hey, somebody I know, like, trust is going to give me some help along this way. And they're going to be very authentic and real about the journey, the ups, the downs. So we've got some great speakers, everybody from David Goggins to Kevin Hart to Kevin O'Leary to, Bethany Frankel and Kendra. It's just an on and on and on and on. And it's exploded. Every one of these things are sold out. It's been wild. We're 2.5 years in and we still got this whole year to go. And it seems like there's no end in sight right now.
Well, I want to just, while we're talking about it, tell everybody you can go to aspiretour.com, aspiretour.com, and go get a ticket. Go to one of these events. And it's really inexpensive. I think it was a couple $100 for a ticket or something.
Obviously like $50 all the way up to a few hundred for the best ticket.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. It was, and the wealth part of it was so good. I traveled, I brought my wife and my 2 kids with me. They're adults, but we all 4 went to Atlanta, got a hotel and stayed there. And they weren't as excited about it as I was, but it was a great thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Distill. This is called the root of all success. So if you had to distill your success in all these years and all the exits, all the amazing things you've been able to accomplish, what would you say is your one key that has unlocked success more than anything else?
The one key is gratitude. Gratitude. I had a mother that was just amazing. Dad and mom, both amazing human beings. I had a lot of loss in my life. Lost a sister, lost a brother. And my mom would constantly rehearse gratitude with me. She would say, hey, Eddie, talk to me about your sister. Tell me your favorite toy was you played with her. Tell me about your favorite time. And then she'd say, aren't you so grateful that the time. So instead of dealing in the loss, my mom would always kind of peddle gratitude. And she would get me to rehearse it, not practice, rehearse gratitude. And she would always say this to me. She would say, Eddie, if you can find gratitude in life's lowest moments, it becomes the catalyst for life's greatest successes. And the reason that I got taken advantage of on my first exit and then turned around and with 3 to 4 years later, I sell another company is because when I was driving in that day, I had my mom's words in my head. Lowest moments, gratitude, greatest growth opportunities. I walked in that day and I thought, you know what? I still am selling this company for 7 times EBITDA. That means I get 7 years of my life back. They're going to pay me for 7. If I did the exact same thing for the next 7 years, that's what I'd get paid. But I get paid today. So what would I do? So that gratitude piece is so vital to my success because, you get kicked in the teeth a lot as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and lots of failures, lots of issues. But if you can flip that around and find gratitude for what you're learning and what you're going through, it spins the entire process around and you find it a massive catalyst to success.
How do you personally define that word success?
Yeah. Success to me is about pacing. To me, I grew up in a very faith-based household. And in the last 10 years, I found a relationship with God that became mine, not just my parents, Success, and I believe that I'm a created being for a purpose. I believe that God created me for a purpose. I believe success is pacing towards what it is that I was created for. I don't think it's a monetary number. I don't think it's the number of businesses I sell or the people I serve. I think what it is it's exploring what I was created to do on this planet and pacing towards it and knowing in my heart that I'm achieving the things that I was created to do.
So by that definition, do you consider yourself to be a successful person?
I am on the pursuit of success.
Good answer. So what, put on your coach hat for just a second. What would be your best piece of advice? Putting gratitude aside, because you already talked about that, but what's your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs who are struggling to scale or exit?
I would say that they've got to stop treating a business like it's art. You have to get into the science of business. There's a reason why I've exited 100 times, right? Like there's a reason why I've bought 125 companies. There's a reason why I've scaled over 40 of them, right? And that's because there's metrics you have to live by. There's a system you have to live by. Stop, flying by the seat of their pants. Stop doing things without a purpose. Stop doing things without data. You've got to get to a place where you can scientifically look at the decisions you're making on a daily basis and know for a fact I'm making the right choice.
Good advice. That's advice that hits very close to my heart, because that's something that I've been thinking about I need to do in my businesses. Since we're both deep in the world of business exits, you obviously are in the deep end of the pool. I'm in the shallow end of the pool. But my Exeter Club Mastermind helps entrepreneurs transition from being what we refer to as owner operators to what we refer to as owner investors. And I'm not going to ask you and put you on the spot, but I would love to be able to have you come and speak at one of our retreats at some point, because these guys, this is what they're trying to accomplish. And I didn't know about you till I went to the Spire Tour. I mean, it's not like you're out there as an influencer on Instagram telling everybody what you did like a lot of people, but you're this quiet, amazing dude who's done some great things in the exit world that I'd love to have my members, my clients, exposed to what you got going on. But
I would love to.
Well, that would be amazing. Well, let me do this as we get ready to close here. This is rapid fire. So first business you started.
First business I started was, it was actually a television show that I was managing TV and radio stations, and my boss wouldn't do it. So I went ahead and funded it myself and built my own TV show with a guy that we ended up exiting later. But yeah.
Worst business decision you ever made?
I will say getting into the fitness space and thinking that I could take a red ocean strategy and still crush it.
What's one thing people get completely wrong about business exits?
Oh man, there's so many things they get wrong. I would say that that they have to take the first offer. If there's one offer, there's going to be two.
Interesting. Okay. Last question. If you had to start over with only $1,000, what's the first thing you'd do?
I would go get a sales job, and I would try to produce some revenue that is disposable.
Wow. Eddie, it's been very, very, this has been better than I thought it was going to be. I was really looking forward to this show, and I know we had to reschedule from the first time we had you scheduled to come on, but I'm honored that you're here sharing your wisdom as the king of exit, as somebody who plays in the exit space and who's had a couple of exits and some colossal failures. It's an honor to have you to share with my audience what's going on. So thank you so much. I'm going to give you the opportunity to have the very last word of the show before I do the outro stuff I got to do anyway, but like very last word and how people can get in touch with you if you want them to get in touch with you.
Sure. Yeah, I love connecting with entrepreneurs. If they want to reach out, Eddie Wilson Official is the typical handle on Instagram or LinkedIn that they can find me on, and I try to answer all my DMs. Last words are this, is that if you don't get to a place where you're exploring purpose in what you're doing, you're going to find emptiness just like me. And don't put yourself in a position where you have all the success in the world around you is telling you you're successful, and you're sitting there wondering, what's life worth living, right? Like, get to a place where you start exploring purpose today. Purpose actually will give you this element of success that you've never experienced that will give you a joy while you're on this success journey. And so to me, that's the most important thing I can leave every entrepreneur with.
Thank you so much, Eddie. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another very successful entrepreneur about his journey to success. And, if I have to be honest with you as my listener, with no disrespect to anybody who's ever been on my show, and we're nearing 300 episodes, a lot of entrepreneurs I've interviewed, I don't listen to all my shows back. I don't often go back and say, hey, I want to listen to that show. Now, I've listened to a lot of them, but I don't purposefully go and say, I want to listen to the show most of the time. This one is one I want to listen to it again, because I was writing down some notes. He went pretty quick through some of his 5 things and 5 pillars. Like I need to go back and listen to that again. But this guy has done what all of us want to do to a smaller, we want to do a small degree of what he's done at a large degree. So go back and listen to this again. Connect with Eddie. Go to an Aspire Tour event. Watch what he's got going on. And the speakers there are great, but, Eddie didn't talk about himself, as you might imagine he wouldn't. But he's actually got really good things to say from the stage, too. So it's been an honor to have him on the show. Eddie Wilson, the King of Exits, Eddie Wilson Official on LinkedIn and Instagram. So go check him out. Make sure you tune in again next week when I talk with yet another very successful person about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.